Welcome back to Access Anime. I'm Henshin Ikeda, and today I'll be doing a walkthrough and review of Blasted Tempest Episode 10. Now, if you remember from last episode, we see Yoshino betraying Muaharo to save Hokage. Now, we also see Seimin attacking Yoshino. Now, we also see a third twist to this little story, because we see Muaharo attacking Seimin, who is attacking Yoshino. So it's like everyone's attacking someone and it winds up back where it started. So I find this hilarious. But moving on past that, we do find out the deal that was made between Seimin and Muaharo. Now, the only way Muaharo can actually find the killer of his sister is to make a deal with the devil, which is Seimin in this case. Now, he's not going to side with Hokage or Yoshino, so he's done with them. So that's the deal. If he doesn't do anything with them, he can see the killer of his sister, or do more apparently. Again, I don't know if he's going to kill the killer in general, or if he's just going to have an open conversation. We don't really know. All we know is there is a deal between Muaharo and Seimin. But you know, Yoshino just doesn't want to let it go, so he comes up with a theory to bring back Hokage. But that doesn't really fly with Muaharo so much, so he passes on that idea, or at least hearing it out. But he makes it interesting. Yoshino puts on the table he knows Muaharo's sister's boyfriend's name, and that definitely gets Muaharo's, at least his full attention. So he's like, okay, fine, let's do it. But you know, even if you fail, I'm going to side with Seimin. So he makes the deal with Seimin that regardless of what's going to happen, he's going to bring the killer right in front of him. And if he can do that, then he's done with Hokage and he's done with Yoshino. That's it. But while they have this little plan in motion, he's siding with Hokage and Yoshino. So that's kind of where the deal is kind of set at. So Yoshino has until Seimin can produce the killer. So that's his little time frame he's working with. But again, that was last episode, and this is a new episode, so let's dive right in. And again, I'll hold my final thoughts on my rating at the end of the clip, so stay tuned. But let's dive right in. Again, we open up the episode with Hokage. Now, she's trying to make sense out of the whole situation on what's happening. First of all, she was going to get screwed over. Now she's not going to get screwed over, so what? That's where she's at right now. Now we are taken to a different scene. Now we see Yoshino he's trying to come up with his theory, because if you remember correctly last episode, we don't know what his theory is to get Hokage back. So he's trying to describe this theory, and it kind of butchered it a little bit, because I still did not understand it. Bear with me, let me describe it. So Yoshino's theory in general is about the Tree of Genesis, and it's working in Hokage's favor. Now we also kind of find out that Seimin is hiding the truth. That's kind of what the buildup is in this episode. So he's hiding something, and apparently he's trying to fool them as well as the world logic. So I guess that makes sense. Now we are taken to a different scene where we see Natsumori versus Yamamoto. And I was waiting for this scene the whole entire episode, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, it was amazing when I first saw it. That's all I can say. Apparently Yamamoto and Natsumori are very equal in power, ironically. So it's a 50-50 twist here. I was all for this. It was amazing. I mean, we definitely see Yamamoto. She's all dressed up. She looks amazing, by the way. Her character is well drawn out. And Natsumori, all I can say is, for a guy that's a defensive magic user, you look pretty offensive in my opinion. But again, moving on to the next scene, we kind of see the assistant director. He's from the government. Now remember, I always say he looks a little shady. Well, in this episode, he looks even shadier, because I guess he was talking to Yamamoto, just not in person, and he tells her in general she's a fool. But apparently Mrs. Yamamoto is trying to buy time for the government. That's why she's fighting Natsumori. So it kind of makes sense. And it's now confirmed that there is an airstrike. So it's been confirmed that there is an airstrike that's going to be attacking the barrier next anyways. But again, Mrs. Yamamoto is buying time by battling Natsumori. That kind of makes sense. But moving on, we see Muaharo yet again, and he's pointing out that Seimin is making Hokage feel despaired, like crap, and we don't know why. He's trying to discredit, Hokage as much as possible. So I didn't know where he was really going with that in general, but also by feeling despaired, apparently she won't try anything. So I guess the main reason that Seimin's saying all this BS about Hokage in general is to buy time. The more time they waste talking about it, not doing anything about anything in general, is more time for the tree to be revived. So I guess this kind of makes a little sense in general. Now we are taken to a different scene where we see Seimin, and he's kind of asking Yoshino, well, not asking, but pointing out you do know that Hokage is still stuck in the past in a different dimension 2 years ago. What are you gonna do? Even if you can figure out all this BS up until now, that still doesn't help the situation at hand. And then we find out Muhara points out he doesn't think it's possible to bring Hokage back in general from this time prison because of a time paradox, I guess. So Muhara is definitely not in this for the long run, so I thought that was worth mentioning. Now we are taking to a different scene. Now we see Seimin, and he's being very conceited, and he thinks he won. He has this argument in the bag, and then Yoshino, oh my god, man, more props to you. He jumps out, and I was laughing hysterically when I heard this little thing going on. He points out, well, the time prison itself is an illusion. I was like, what? And he says there is no time paradox, and Seimin just drops his sword and he's stunned. I was like, we got you, Seimin. We got you. We got you in a bag. It was like an amazing scene. Now again, we do see Yoshino, and he's pointing out Hokage, she didn't really calculate the time it took her to get to the island. All she knows is she's been on the island for 4 months. Now if you think about that, okay, so she's been on the island for 4 months, but that doesn't mean she's been on the island for 2 years, because technically she forgot to add in the time that it took her to get to the island. So apparently Yoshino has the idea that maybe it's been 2 years and you've been sleeping, and that 4 months is all you can remember because you were asleep for the other 2 years. So you haven't calculated the time that you were sleeping when you were delivered to this island by Seimin and the rest of the Kusarabi clan. So he points that out, and it definitely makes sense. Now the buildup is it's a psychological illusion in general. So we are taking to a different scene where we see Seimin, and he's saying Yoshino is dead wrong, but he's not saying it, he's really thinking it. He's very stunned. So right now, Seimin believes he's right. He knows he's right. He doesn't know what the heck Yoshino's talking about. So I'm a little confused. So in one side, Yoshino is definitely right, and on the other side, Seimin is definitely right because that's all he knows. And if that's all he knows and he's the one pulling the strings, then he has to be right. But what Yoshino was saying did make a little sense. Now we are taken to a different scene where we see Muhara, and he's getting ready to use his gun in general. It looks like he was about to take out the tree or something along those lines, so he has his mind set up at least where he wants to go with this. It looks like he was about to side with Hokage and Yoshino, but that's what the setup looked like. Now we are taken to a different scene where we see Natsumori and Yamamoto, and they're still fighting, and we see an airstrike right above their head. Perfect timing because we do a split scene where we see Tetsume. Now Tetsume kind of orders 2 of the barriers to be taken down so they can power up the Tree of the Exodus to rush the ritual. So he's kind of desperate right now, and it definitely shows. Now moving on to a different scene, we see Muhara and Hokage. It kind of looks like whatever they hear from Yoshino, it sounds kind of dodgy and they don't believe it. So you have Muhara and Hokage not really believing Yoshino, at least what he's saying. And again, they feel it's kind of dodgy, this whole scenario that Yoshino's coming up with. Now we are taken to a really good different scene with Seimin. He brings up an interesting point. You see that barrel that Hokage's body was in that's presently here? Well, Hokage in the past has one as well. Have her write down a word on the barrel, and Yoshino, you examine the barrel that's over there, and if the words match, then I'm right. So Yoshino comes up with a random word, and he tells, I guess, Hokage over the communicator to write it down on the barrel, and he does. Now the word is called Ariel. She writes it down. She breaks a glass bottle, she writes it down, and he examines it, and it's there. So apparently she is in the past, and she is in a different dimension. It's been confirmed. So Yoshino, you kind of screwed the pooch there. Now we are taken to a different scene. Now we see Natsumori and Yamamoto. They're still fighting, and now there is a clear winner. Now we find out it's Miss Yamamoto. She's the loser. I love the build up there. You thought she was going to win. She looks amazing, but you know what? If looks could kill, that's all I could say. But sadly in this situation, they did not. She was beaten by Natsumori. So I was right. Man, thanks for hanging in there. That's the kind of... this is the kind of episode I was looking forward to. I was hoping he was going to win. I was praying that he was going to win. But we didn't get to see the fight, so that kind of sucked. But he was the clear winner. Now, he was walking away. So Natsumori, he won. Yamamoto is on the ground. She's defeated. And he's walking away. Because, his shield's about to give out. His barrier couldn't stand anymore, so he's walking away. Now we find out Jinryo shows up. Now I refer to him as Hoshimore, but he's also referred to as Jinchiro, so I'm going to refer to him as Jinchiro from now on. So Jinchiro shows up out of nowhere, and remember, he is on Hokage's side, but he's a neutral player in this series, so I thought I'd point that out. Now he's talking with Natsumori, and he's like, wait mage, like hey you or wait buddy. He says wait mage. So Natsumori turns around and they're having an open dialogue, and I'm like, okay, where's this gonna take us? I was like, what? He pulls out a bag of cookies. Well, a cookie, like a snack. He's like, you want a cookie? You want a snack? Like, what? Where's your head at, man? He just got done defeating Yamamoto, and there's a little battle going on here with tanks and, the government, and you want to have cookies? Okay, let's see where this goes. Now, he tells Natsumori to stay longer. Can you stay here? Stay longer? So they're going to have an open discussion about something, but we don't get to find out what. But we do see, like, it looks like wind in the background, and that takes us to Hokage in the next scene. Now, Hokage, she's feeling a lot better, and she's definitely back on her game. And she points out Seimin is hiding something, but we don't know what. So we're taken to a different scene where we see Muaharo. Now he's figured everything out, at least for Yoshino's side of his theory. And he finds out this theory that Yoshino came up with is a ploy. It's BS. It was just to get Muaharo to side with him. But Muaharo decides, you know what? I'm going to stick with Seimin. We're going to keep that deal. But we're going to use that as a little timeline. I'm going to side with Hokage and Yoshino until the killer can be produced. And if we can't do anything to save, Hokage, well, that's it. Them the breaks. So that's interesting. That's definitely interesting to see what side he's really on, but what he might be on if things go to hell. But again, that's where the episode ends. Moving on to final thoughts. First of all, I want to know this feeling that Hokage actually has. What is Seimin actually hiding? We don't know. And Jinryu, why the hell did you show up out of nowhere? Literally, why did you show up with a bag of cookie for a snack? What's this discussion you're having with Natsumori? We don't know, but I would love to know. I mean, come on, you show up out of nowhere? Come on, there's got to be some story behind that. But again, that ends it for my final thoughts. Not a lot there, just a couple bits and pieces. Now moving on to the final rating. I thought about this. I definitely thought about this. I had to give this a 4 out of 5. I want to give this a 3.5 out of 5, but I can't. Now, we got screwed over. We didn't see the battle between Natsumori and Miss Yamamoto really drawn out. We didn't even see it at all. We saw maybe 3 parts of it. It started, the middle gap, and it ended. Kind of got screwed there, but it was a great ending because I wanted her to be defeated, so it worked out in my favor, so I liked it because of that. But I wasn't wowed because we didn't get to see the battle, or the fight in general. Now, moving on past that, we were introduced to a lot of information, at least the Yoshino BS, I call it, the Yoshino bull, because his BS was amazing. It was just to get Muaharo to side with him, but now everything's starting to make sense. But we still don't know what the theory, what's the next step? How are we going to bring Hokage back to the present? That's where the episode ends, where they're trying to come up with a reason or some type of way, an idea, a plan to bring her to the present. I mean, all this magic and you can't bring her to the present, that's kind of where the build-up's at right now. But I am going to give credit where credit is due. I'm definitely going to give this a 4 out of 5 because I like this episode. It was very confusing, but I like it when it's confusing because to me it starts to make more sense. But again, final rating, 4 out of 5. But that ends it for my walkthrough and review of Blast of Tempest episode 10. Again, comment down below, thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe above, check me out on Twitter, and follow me if you like. But definitely let me know what you thought of this episode and what you thought's going to happen in the next episode coming up. But again, that ends it for now, and I gotta go, guys. I gotta hit the bricks. Gotta go. Definitely, I gotta go. But it's been a pleasure hanging out with you guys. Before I go, I gotta say it. You can't stop the access, but you can watch the feed. I'll see you later, guys.